Hello there, beautiful internet and you fantastic creatures of the beyond. I could not hold myself, so I have went full into this X-File thing because I was so unsatisfied with the last episode, with how it ended, and the fact that the quality of the video wasn't so great. I hope that the streaming is better now. If not, I'm gonna just murder this OBS, I swear. So, I have made this, which is not really all that impressive, to be honest. It's actually way less than what we did last time. But under the hood, oh gosh, I'm going to blow your mind. So, these are the files. And then we have some things happening over here. And everything you see here is basically an SVG. Literally everything, except for the background, obviously. So, what exactly does this do? Well, first of all, we have to enable the sound. So now if I'm going to click this button over here, well, I think you can hear there is a little bit of a ticking sound. So when I click this button, look what happens. Bam. And these buttons are still clickable. They both go to Inkscape, the official website. So basically, this thing switches between light and dark theme. But there is way more to it than just that. So by default, it starts in the dark mode. So if I'm going to refresh this page, or basically press Ctrl F5 for hard refresh, you see there is a background noise playing over there. Let me do that again. Well, the music is kind of muffling it, but yeah, it's there. I'm going to disable the sound for the duration of this video so it doesn't bother us with the pinging thing every time we refresh. Anyway, so these buttons have a small transition and they go from 0.7 opacity to 0.1 opacity. Nothing special about this. And you can drag this button. As you can see, they're basically SVGs of their own. So we can open them. I'm not sure if I can open this one, but this image should be opened in a new place. Unfortunately, we cannot see it because it's white. But as you can see, this is a text with a simple circle, an ellipse around it. And this only opens the link. I don't see the image though. Yeah, never mind. Because these buttons are made differently than this. Well, this is not a button, this is just an image in quotes. But we'll check it out. Now, another thing that I've done here is when you're switching to the light theme, this background over here changes color a bit. But look at this button. See? It elongates. Makes a really nice effect. So that's all nice. Now let's have a look into the code. So right now we're on the light background, so if I press Ctrl F5 now, it's going to go back to the black one. And you might wonder, but what if you want to keep it on the light background, even if you refresh? I have you covered. I have you covered. Basically, this is the whole code for what we are seeing over here. Not a lot of code, to be honest. Well, I am importing some code in the background. for example, this style CSS and this script, JavaScript file. And basically, I just boilerplated the template a bit so it looks more humane. So I've added a doc type over here for the browser to understand that it's a HTML page. Then I went with the HTML and the head element, and then inside the body I have placed this big div, which is the file, which contains the background with the SVG for this file. And then I've introduced a header, an article with the two buttons, and the footer where the slider resides. And then we have a few actions done to them, but nothing too complicated. So, I don't know exactly what to start with. I would go into the CSS because that's the most juicy part, but I feel like we need to start with the JavaScript first because there are some elements going on there that help us do some of these things. So understanding the JavaScript first and then tying it to the CSS is going to ease the process. So let's have a look at the JavaScript. It is a bit chunky, but don't be afraid of it. I put a lot of spacing in between the lines because I like to let the code breathe. Plus I also added quite a few comments to make you guys understand what the code does, so it doesn't look so alien. So basically this one, it fetches and declares the body as a global value and then sets a constant color for the themes. So these are just global variables. Well, one variable and two constants. The variable in this case, which is a let body, is just looking for the body ID. And in our case, the body ID is over here. Now, I had to reference it kind of like this because it's kind of a complicated thing to make it work otherwise. Anyway. And these two are basically defining the colors. This is the color for the for the bright theme, and this is for the dark theme. So they're not white and black. They are a small variation there. And then we start with the page loader that triggers the background sound that plays when the page is loaded, obviously. And this one with the cookies will get a bit there later. And then we have these two sounds. Basically this one is loaded over here, and this is the loader, the MP3 file that loads the sound at the beginning. And then for the clicks that we have on the buttons, when we hover like so, or when we click this, is happening from over here. Display click. Display click transitions into our index and is played over here for the two buttons on mouse over, and here on click. So on mouse over means that I'm going with the mouse over these two buttons and it makes the clicking sound, and here I have to click it in order to make the clicking sound. Perfect. Okay, so what's with the cookies? Well, I know this is kind of advanced stuff, but I hope that I make you curious at least to kind of understand what happens in an application or online on any website that you see, and kind of give you ideas how to improve your work as well if you are curious about coding. I'm not a coder, by the way, I just suck at coding, but I have a bit of experience with it because throughout the years I have interacted with it a lot and I kind of know what to search for. So if I would to enable this process cookies, which is a function, it is declared a bit lower over here. I'm gonna skip these two for now and we'll get to them later. So let's have a look at the cookies here, at the process cookies. So it looks to get the background color cookie, my double one cookie. So the background color cookie, and check if its value is set to bright. But where do we define this? Well, the definition happens all the way over here, where we tell it this line of code. So basically, when I click the toggle, because this is in the toggle for the, sorry, over here, toggle theme. This toggle theme is connected to the button over here. See? So this switch or slider button does two things. It plays the sound when we click it, and it toggles the theme. So when we toggle the theme, it does a bit of wizardry over here, and we'll get to that later. But basically, it when it moves to the right, it enables this cookie. And then this cookie goes somewhere into the browser, and I'll show you guys in a moment where. But basically I'm saying background color cookie is equal to bright, and this is a special type of definition here that tells the browser to improve security on the cookie. Now this is a very simple cookie, it doesn't do anything crazy. It just stores one simple value to understand what type of theme we have on. And all websites use this kind of essential cookie basically, even YouTube and so on and so forth. So once we define this cookie in the document, or when the slider goes to the right, if we press F12, we have a few things. Yeah, I don't know what's happening over here, probably because I've disabled something, but we'll get to that later. So here in the storage is where our cookie is stored. So if I delete this, this is also how you delete all the cookies. Well, there's more things than just the cookies. So if I hard refresh the page with Control F5, we'll see that the cookie is absent over here. If I click now, I have stored this bright cookie, background color cookie in here with the value bright. And it also have same site strict. This means that nobody can interact with this cookie from outside of the page. In my case, it's a local host, but it applies to anywhere you place it. So now if I press Control F5 again, look what happens. It loads the white theme, and that is because it looks over here and it sees, oh, the value is bright. So how does it know that the value must be bright? Well, basically, I tell it this: if background color is equal to the dark theme color, which is not, then do these things. But if it's not, else here, then do these things. But this only applies inside the button. So the cookie is actually accessed outside of the button. So if we go here, all the way up here, when the page loads, I go and activate this process cookies function. And this process cookie goes to this function over here. And it looks inside here. What do we have stored? We have stored background color bright, right? Okay. So it goes and selects the cookie from this position over here, and it processes this way. Now, in order for us to understand what it displays, I set here a console log. So the console log, if we go here into the console and refresh again, we get bright. This one is not allowed because I've muted. Okay, I understand. So it shows us bright. Basically, we are seeking from this get cookie to get the background color cookie, what is it called? Name. So we have a name and a value. So from this cookie that we are selecting here, we are getting the background color cookie name, which gives us the value for it. Yeah. And then having this bright defined in our console, we say if the cookie equals bright, then edit background color with the bright theme color, which basically is over here defined. Yeah, this hex color. And this is a function. We'll get into this function a bit later. And then we do a new thing. We tell the switch to click to the right automatically without us interacting, right when the page loads. And then we tell this toggle color class, to enable itself and disable the color on these icons. And this is a separate function over here. I know it's a bit convoluted and you have to go a lot to connect the dots, but it's quite clever, quite easy to follow, and it's very flexible because you don't have to write repeating code over and over and over again. So this is the simplification of the code. Basically, you have to understand that functions are like something that you reuse all the time. Like in the case of toggle color class, which is defined over here, this function, I have used it over here and in these two places as well. So instead of writing all of this code 3 times and putting it here, here, and here, I just referenced it with a class. That's it. So we do these 3 things when the page loads. Yeah, we edit the color of the background to become white. We tell the slider to go to the right over here automatically, and we disable the colors on these SVG icons, buttons, or whatever they are. Now we're gonna talk about this class because it's a very interesting class and it does something very, very unique. Good. Now let's discuss about the edit background color, which is basically this class. So this class looks at for the body. The body is defined over here. Yeah, this variable. We're taking the global variable body, which is the body over here. And I am telling this function to return the background color. And I am also passing a variable here, a value actually, which is called color. So if we look at this again, I'm saying this. Take this function, which is over here, input a value, which is bright theme color, which is this hex code, and put it over here. I could also write this like taking this equals to, and instead of color we put this code. But the thing is that we can reuse this and put whatever color we want inside here, you know? So we can use this code over and over and over, and we just change the color. So I don't have to write it multiple times. Good. So basically, when I'm inputting this, I'm forcing the color of the background to change to this hex code. In this case, it's bright. If I want to change it to dark, I define it somewhere else. In this case, I have defined it in the slider over here. So here is with the bright theme, and here is with the dark theme, which again are these two values over here. So we are using the code 3 times. 2 times has to happen in the slider and once at the beginning of the page. That's the rule. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Now. There is a bit of a conundrum over here, because this code is a special case. But before I jump to that, let's actually talk about the toggle class here, because I think this one is more important. So, the toggle class is only referenced here and in the button, right? So basically what the toggle class does, color class does, is when we click this, it changes the colors for this, okay? And the same happens when I refresh the page. It looks like if it's the white, it removes the colors, yeah? It toggles them. So, basically, I am saying this. We're giving a variable called, in this case, center, which is for this one. I try to keep the same naming convention. So we have center, and then we have the two links that are over here. So, the center, this variable for center, refers to this button, to this icon, sorry. So I'm query selecting the center ID, which is over here, this ID, okay, perfect. And then I say to the center ID, toggle mask center. This is a special class that I have defined in the CSS, right over here at the end. And basically you can think of this CSS mask filter sort of like how we do in Inkscape when we use the sliders for the HSL, but in this case is HSB, because it's the hue, the saturation, and the brightness. And we also have sepia, and there are a few other things like contrast and inversion, but we'll get to that a bit later. But for these colors, in this case, this is a pink and this is a blue. Yeah, so if I enable back this, you see it's a pink and these two are blue. Also like the fact that when the color goes on and off, there is like this sort of trick of the eye where you kind of see it a bit green, but that's because the eye is trying to compensate the color change with the contrast from the background. Anyway, that's just a funny thing. So, the interesting thing is that we are actually not manipulating the SVG, we are applying a filter on top of it. So these SVGs, these three icons, are white. And I come with the CSS and I paint them on top directly inside the page. So I'm not affecting the SVG at all, because I'm not manipulating it via JavaScript or anything like that. I'm just telling the CSS to apply a filter mask. How should I say? It's applying it over here at this level, at this tag. It doesn't apply it directly on the SVG. So there is a big difference. I don't know how to explain it any easier. The same here, it applies it directly to the over the image, not over the SVG. So you have to kind of research this a bit to fully understand it, but the point is that this style is non-destructive, so I can change whatever color I want here and it will paint these things however we want. But here's the problem. These filters, we don't know exactly how to write them. And that is because we need a special type of converter. And in this case, we go to this page. You can actually save this page. You can save this code and roll it. So basically this page is telling us, give me a hex code over here. So I'm gonna say something like FF000, which is red, and compute filters. And if I click compute filter, why isn't it working? Oh, I forgot 0. There we go. And this is not a one-on-one conversion. Even here it says the color is somewhat off. Consider running it again. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, this is the perfect result. Loss 0, 0. So it's not 100% all the time, because you see the values are changing here. You see the color is off. How can you tell if the color is off? Personally, I can tell because I developed this affinity to recognize the color variations. But we have this tool here, which is the eyedropper. And basically, if I go over here, you can see F, F, and 4 zeros. But if I go here, we see that it's FF0800, which is incorrect. So we have to run it again. This is close enough. Let's try to get it again. Perfect result. Let's see again with the eyedropper tool. Perfect code. Well, it's a small variation, but it's unnoticeable. So you see it has an invert, a sepia, a saturate, the hue rotation, the brightness, and the contrast. Basically, this is the formula that our HSL works by. Well, a different formula, but close by. So, having this filter here, we can just copy paste this and put it inside our filter to get whatever color we wish. And that's all very beautiful. Good. So I referenced this converter over here if you guys ever need it. Now, in this case, this one is a bit more complicated in the sense that we have two buttons over here and they both have the name, the class link. So if I would do the same type of coding over here with just one variable and call the query selector for the class link, it will only apply to the first button. So I have to select, to go through both of the buttons. So this operation over here helps us to process all of the buttons that have the class link. So if I have 100 buttons with the class link, all of them will be processed through this. So it's sort of like an array. And then basically it loops through the array and then it toggles the mask link. So this one was the mask center and this is the mask link. In the CSS we have mask center, mask link. This one applies to the button down here, this one applies to the icon over there. Good. So we have finished this part. Perfect. Now this one I'm still going to set it a bit aside because we have to jump inside. Yeah. The process cookie and Sorry, not the process cookie, this one, the RGB to hex and process background color. So this function right over up to over here refers to our slider. So this one does a few things. Basically, it needs to get the process the background color. Yeah. So this one is looking into our body, yeah, and collecting the property for the background color. The background color for our body is defined over here, yeah, RGB. Well, it's RGB, but we've defined it with where is it? We defined it over here, first of all. So this is in the CSS. So if I would to refresh the page, and let's say I'm going to remove everything, yeah, so we don't have anything saved in the storage right now. So this is a fresh load. This is the color that we are being displayed in the CSS. Eventually this will change, but we'll discuss that why in the moment. So when the page loads the first time, this button looks for the background and asks the background, what color are you right now? And the background tells him, I'm this color, 030303, okay? Now, in order for this to happen, in our script, we have to go into this function and compute the style for the body. So this computation takes the CSS to get the property value for the background color, but instead of getting 030303, in actuality we're getting an RGB color. And that's a problem because we are working with hex, not with RGB. So in order to circumvent this issue, we are calling this function over here and we're passing the RGB value inside here. So this RGB passes the value over here, and then so this one goes over here and then it's transmitted over here, and then it inputs it in this process. So basically this is the red, this is the green, and this is the blue channel. And after it processes everything here, so don't worry, I didn't write this code, I copied it. But obviously I took a lot of time to fully understand how it works before I add it into my code over here. And then we are returning the process into a hex code. We have to put this hashtag in front. So it concatenates to the hex color code. And that is very important. So once we get the RGB into hex on this one, and I can actually show you guys into the console. So if I refresh, and now if I click, we get the RGB, the hex color, which was 030303. And since that was the color initially, which is associated to the dark theme color over here, which again, it's all the way up here. So we have 030303. So this is just to compare it, but we also use it afterwards. So initially here, we do this thing. We get the color from the background, which is 03, so on. And then we say, is it equal to 030303? Yes. Then do this action. And this action tells me this. I want to change the color to the bright color, which is that other color over here. D8 3 times. Then it activates the cookie to go with the bright, and then it disables the color on the buttons and the image over here. Perfect. Now if I click the image, the slide again, it took the D8. So basically it did the whole process again through this function. It looked at the background color, it analyzed and understood that it's equal to D8. Okay, I should comment this back now. And then it went into this function again, into this if statement again, sorry. And it said, does the background color equal to 080808? To 030303? No. It equals to D8 and so on. So it goes into the else statement. And in this case, we're telling it change it to the dark theme color, which is again referenced all the way up there. Set the cookie here to go to the dark. Now we can type anything we want, but for consistency reasons, I just typed dark over here. And then toggle the color class to become colored like this. Perfect. Perfect. So I think this about covers all of the JavaScript. I know it's a bit messy at the beginning, but the more you dwell with it, the more you understand it. Now, there are a few things here that are commented out, and they are commented out for a specific reason, and we'll discuss in a moment why. But let's look at the style now. So I've defined like everything should have a 0 margin. This one, got a small mistake over here. Okay. I think we can close this for now. So the width and the height is 100%. So we can just center this element. And then for the body, I've added a few things here, but I'm just gonna discuss about this. First of all, we define this value with 0.3 first here, because when the page first loads, it has no idea what color the background is unless we define it over here. And this is also a fallback in case the JavaScript doesn't work. And yes, JavaScript can stop working in certain browsers that are more privacy oriented and disable some parts of JavaScript. And it can happen that sometimes it's too aggressive and it can disable the whole JavaScript sometimes. So it's better to have a fallback in CSS because the CSS doesn't get disabled normally. And then we give this transition so it kind of fades in a bit. I'm gonna skip this part for now, and the display flex is basically for us to justify the content and the alignment of center. So basically put this in the center vertically and horizontally. This whole file div. Now there is a bit of a thing here which we'll get into a bit later. And now we're getting into the formatting of the file div. Actually, I don't even need this anymore. So basically this is calling file background SVG, which is really nice because I can zoom in and out as much as I want. But the responsiveness is not complete because on mobile it's gonna look kind of messy. For that one I would have needed to implement viewports and some media queries in the CSS, and it's a whole lot of extra code that it's good to have, but it's gonna work more or less in mobile as well. Now we are doing here a keyframe animation with the fade in. So basically when I click this, you see that it loads in 3 seconds. It's basically kind of the transition and animations are different in CSS, but they kind of do the same thing in some regards, not in all aspects. But they can't basically be used. Well, it's a bit complicated to explain, but just understand that transitions are more useful in some situations and animations with keyframes in other situations. So these are the two basic situations that I'm talking about. Good. Then we format our header, article and footer, and again I'm displaying the flex with justify, content, center and center so that these elements are in the center. And let me do something here. So if I'm gonna refresh now, we're gonna see these things here. So I've delimited these sections like so. The header is 255 pixels high, the article 282, and this one is 50. And that solves all of our problems when it comes to centering our elements. We don't have to calculate anything, we just have to kind of know how much we want to go with the height. And if you remember, when I created this file into Inkscape, I've delimited some sections over here at certain intervals. So that helped me to kind of know how big I need to make this area in terms of height. Good. Now we get to the element of positioning. So the link, which are these two buttons, they're displaying inline blocks, so just so that they're displaying one next to each other. And then the center is 70 pixels wide, and left and right, left is this one, right is this one. Left has this background, which is left SVG, and right has this background, which is right SVG, and it's set up to be 150 pixels to the right from this, from the left, whatever, you understand what I mean. And then I've also defined that this background side should be 70 pixels. So if I want to make it like, I don't know, 170 in all three cases, like so, if I refresh, see, it makes them big. Now the reason why this is clipping outside is because they are backgrounds, while this one is an image. So if we look here, this one is inside of an image, while this one is associated with the class link. Sorry, with the class, with the, sorry, not the class, the ID left and right over here, and left and right is embedded inside this href. So I would have to make it 170 as well in order for it to work. Let's refresh, you see. Still, there are a few things that need to be sorted out because I'm still pushing these two elements, but you get what I mean. So I'm gonna undo this element. Perfect. Then we format the behavior of the links. Basically, when I hover, it goes from opacity 0.7 to opacity 1, as you can see. And it has this small transition. And then we go to the toggle button, which is over here, this button. And basically, this is an input checkbox. So I'm hiding how the checkbox, because if I would show it, or if I would make it visible, it's very, very small. You can barely see it. So if it's kind of doing the same thing, but yeah, you get what I mean. So I have to hide that, and I apply this element to the label. And the label does a few things here with the after effect, with the checked, when it's checked, when it's unchecked, and so on, and when it's active. And it transmutes this, basically when I click it like this, it transmutes it a bit to the right, and then when I release, it goes to the other side. And obviously then the JavaScript is also checked on the click event button. Perfect. So let's refresh this, zoom out. And set it a bit. And then we get into the mask here, which we already discussed with the filter mask. Nice. Okay, so now let's talk about some cool things. I don't know exactly where to start. I know exactly where to start. We can actually do CSS animation directly into the body. So I'll exemplify over here. So if I refresh now, there we go. We have this element that is doing this keyframe animation over here. And this is consistent with our background color. But why stop here? We can do some really cool things further. We can go here. And we can, for example, enable this background when we click the toggle, and let's see what happens. First of all, I'm going to the black because we were in the light theme, so this first part is related when the dark theme is active. So I need to now click it, and the body will inherit this background image and the background color. So there are two different types of backgrounds here, the color and the image. But of course the image is going to overlap the color in this case. So if I click it, look what happens. Basically this is a GIF that is loaded. Now initially I wanted to make it with animated SVGs, but yeah, it's very taxing in terms of resources, and if you're gonna zoom in, the browser can even crash or stop, and so it's better to avoid it. Then if I wanted to do it with a video, I would have had to create some shenanigans that floats underneath. So the middle ground was to input a GIF. Now the problem with GIFs is that they are compressed and the quality is, you're gonna see some pixelation, but in this case, for this background, it's very unnoticeable. It's very difficult to catch since it's so crisp. And this was basically done from an SVG and animated, then saved and converted into a GIF. Perfect. But let's say we want something more serious for our background. So I'm gonna just refresh and nothing happens. Why? Well, mainly because this background is only activated when only we click the button. I can also put it inside the checking of the cookie right over where right over here in the process cookies. So basically I can enable that background image as well here if I want. But for now we're just gonna hold on to this, okay? So let's go back to the black, and now if I'm gonna go back, bam. Ooh, that is very trippy. But yeah, you might ask, Well, that doesn't look so good. It's just duplicating itself. Yeah, because that is the normal way. Because basically this background, this animated GIF is only this square width and height. So in order to fix this, we have to go into our body and enable some extra properties, which are basically the background size to be covered, the background to not repeat, the attachment to be fixed, and the position to be centered. And now if I'm going to refresh and do the same thing again, there we go. That looks much, much better. Obviously this element over here is going to constantly blob around. Now, I had some issues on the mobile. It really doesn't work well with the background, it covers it. I'm not entirely sure what the issue might be. So I kind of chose to not go with it because yeah, it creates those extra issues that I don't know how to solve. Good. So I'm gonna disable this. Let's go back into the dark theme. Ah, we can't. Well, what is happening? Why can't we turn back into the dark theme? We are actually turning into the dark theme. But the problem is that once we define the background image, it's gonna stay like that. So in order to disable the background image, we have to go into our script over here, and when we want to turn back into the dark mode, we have to unset the background image over here. So let's refresh this. We're gonna be in the dark. Now if I'm gonna go here, bam, we enable the background image. If I click, it disables the background image. Perfect. But as you can see, the background image is, yeah, quite a lot of noise here, and that's because of the GIF compression. And of course, we get some other artifacts. We can see some squares there. They don't look so great. So in order to kind of avoid this, I use the clever background. Which is basically this. See? So I can disable it. Bam, bam, bam. So it looks fantastic. And this is pixel art, so we don't have to care about compression or anything like that. It's fantastic. Good. Good, 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 good. Well, this one is from a theme from... what's it called? It's for a Linux theme or something. The Bula Boucle Sans Fil. Perfect. So yeah. We can do lots of cool things here. I can actually let this be here like so, because I kind of like it. And you can also replace it with another image. You just have to type it here in the URL. So for example, I can take, for the light, to put this one. So now if I refresh, obviously it's gonna be dark, but if I can go like this, now bam, see? Of course, in order for that to load, you would have to go into the cookie and define it, but that's a lot of extra code to write. So for now, I'm just gonna keep it with black, and this I'm gonna disable it for now. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything else to cover. I hope I didn't miss anything. Now, I still didn't manage to solve the issue with the text, but the cool thing is that we don't need to write it inside the SVG inside Inkscape. We can basically write it by hand here. So for example, if I want to, I don't know, let's break the line here and let's type some I don't know, let's say style color white, hello text. There you go. Oh, we didn't actually break the line. We need to put two of them. I have to, yeah, have to do it via CSS. Anyway, that's not a problem. So we can justify the text via CSS, which is much easier. Obviously, we don't have to write it like this, but yeah, it works. When it works, it works. And there are many other cool things that you can do in JavaScript and CSS. Mainly try to default to CSS as much as possible. And for the JavaScript, well, we can do some interesting things. We can basically replace things to be so much easier if we would replace the entire CSS file. So for example, right now we are importing inside here the style CSS, but we can tell in the JavaScript, instead of importing this style CSS, we import style CSS2, style 2 CSS. And in style 2 CSS, we define other values. And it's so much easier then, because, well, but that means extra space taken, and it's not a lot of space. These are very small files, clearly. But it's extra code written, you know? And we just want to kind of be proficient. And obviously, you can kind of manipulate this, well, not this one, but this one at least, through JavaScript, directly the SVG. But the problem is that when you're defining them as backgrounds, yeah, it's extremely difficult to do any modifications directly on the SVG. You basically would have to use Ajax with JSON, and it's really not worth the trouble. I mean, yeah, there are some other hacky ways, but yeah, you have to do it via the site server process. Perfect. I think I'm gonna leave it like this. I'm gonna upload it to the G drive so you guys can have a copy and dwell into the code. Maybe even do your own designs. And maybe even find better ways to make it more responsive than I did. As I said, on the mobile it is a bit finicky, but it works. It works. Only when you turn it on the side, it's gonna start having problems, because unlike an object with a source, with a data, sorry, it can't stop over here. It will go like this, and since I set overflow, it's going to display like this, you know, like an interior div. I don't know how to better describe it. It's like a boxy. Perfect. Okay, I'm gonna leave it at this, and I'm gonna catch you guys in the next episode. You stay awesome, and bye for now.